All right. Hey, good morning, Ron. How are you doing?
Good morning, sir. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Awesome. You know what? I'm fantastic. I appreciate you joining me this morning. Um, Ladies and gentlemen who are joining me on this video, I want to introduce you to a really good friend of mine, Ron Jones. Ron Jones is the owner of two Restoration One franchises, Restoration One of Greater Charlotte and Restoration One of Winston Salem. I have had the pleasure and privilege of knowing and becoming friends with Ron now for a couple of years, and have been able to, talk shop with him and pick his brain, and really had a great opportunity to grow a relationship with Ron. Value his friendship very much, and so I'm anxious and excited to have him on this call today to talk to our audience, talk to people about growing $1 million business, specifically in the restoration industry. Ron, you and I have had a number of conversations, and in this industry, just like yourself, a few years ago, there's a lot of entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs that are are getting into or just got into this business, or maybe even been into it for a few years, who are grinding and going to work every day, trying their best, trying their darndest to grow their business and grow it to $1 million. This business, we've talked many times. This business has such a great potential to be huge and to be much bigger than $1 million. But that first $1 million is really that first major hurdle that entrepreneurs, business owners have to tackle in order to really see that the potential of a business like this. And so I appreciate you jumping in and being able to share some of your expertise and your thoughts, maybe some of the bumps, bruises, roadblocks, the things that you've had to go over and hurdle in order to get to where you are today, and growing a very successful restoration company of your own. And so as we kind of kick this off, Ron, maybe we could start by, I just ask you to maybe to tell us a little bit about your story, a little bit about your background. I know it's interesting because you don't really hail from the restoration industry. You weren't, like me, kind of brought up in it, so to speak. But tell me a little bit about your story, where you started from, and how you got into the restoration industry, and maybe why you chose this industry to to grow a business in and grow a lifestyle.
Thanks. No, this is definitely a second career for me. So my first career was 25 plus years of IT executive leadership. Executive by my late 20s, running IT, consulting, IT outsourcing for large multinational companies. And spent the last 10 years running a global IT infrastructure for a financial services firm.
Really?
Um, After spending 25 years doing that, got laid off. Wife and I spent, a year basically, reacquainting ourselves with each other as well as the family. We decided we wanted to do something on our own. So we started looking at a bunch of different companies, looked at a lot of different franchise models. I think I went about, looked at 25 different franchise models, three restoration companies or three restoration franchise models. What I liked about the restoration space was it was recession proof, as much as you can be anyway. What I liked about the Restoration One model was it was more of an executive model where I knew coming in that I wasn't going to be the guy in the truck, right? I knew that's not me. I wanted to be the guy running the business, not the guy doing the business. So we opened, I signed all the paperwork in May 2017. We opened our doors August 2017. We immediately got Charlotte up and running. And then by May 2018, we had Winston-Salem up and running. I think our first year's revenue, we pulled right, my goal was $1 million in the first year. I missed. I think we pulled about 900K, but we definitely hit it in our second year.
That's awesome. That's interesting that you come from such a, a polar opposite, I guess,
Yes.
background into restoration. But I think it's awesome because um, this industry does in a lot of ways kind of meet that recession-proof model. Like regardless of what's going to happen. I mean, we just have gone through an unprecedented time with a pandemic that has shut business down, destroyed many lives for that matter, from a financial standpoint. And yet restoration businesses, as far as essential businesses were considered, restoration businesses in many ways thrived during what really could have been a serious shutdown and a problem for people. So awesome. I love that. And I love the fact that, you had a goal and you although you missed it barely in the first year, you went after it and second year, knocked it out of the park. I know a lot of businesses, they'll go on for a number of years before they hit that first $1 million mark. So so kudos to you and how you did that. So tell me a little bit then, Ron. Your goal in the first year was to hit $1 million. What were some of the challenges that you faced, like in that first year, going after those goals, trying to hit those revenue marks? What were the challenges you faced, and what did you do to overcome those, to ultimately be successful in achieving your goals?
Yeah, I mean, my approach was to try everything first of all. So from a marketing perspective, I mean, within 3 months, I had 3 salespeople. So I was pouring a lot of cash in before the revenue was kind of meeting that spend. From not only from a feet on the street, 3 salespeople in one territory, I also was trying every marketing out there, pay-per-click SEO, Home Advisor, Thumbtack, 33 Mile, you name it. I was giving it a shot. But at the same time, I was being maniacal about monitoring where my spend was going and what my return on investment was. And after 90 days, if I wasn't seeing that return on investment, I was quickly shutting that spend off. So to me, a lot of the issues, the hurdles I was running into, which I think fed into my background, is the restoration space. I feel like is probably 10 years behind on technology. And to get some of that reporting and those metrics that we need to try the different marketing efforts to see really what works, that technology is not there. So you're still doing some of that manual tracking.
Okay.
But I think that gives us all an opportunity, quite frankly.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Number one, so obviously you understood and understand the value and the importance of investing into your company, and you've got to invest in marketing, you got to invest in sales. Obviously you don't make money without making some sales. But it's interesting that you mentioned how closely you monitored your returns, and then had a goal. 90 days, if it's not working, we're pivoting, we're switching, we're doing something else. And how often I see that mistake being made with business owners, people who are starting out, who don't, they're pouring a lot of money into things and praying,
Yeah.
praying that it works. And then after 90 days, 120 days, they have a semblance of whether it's working. They have a feeling, but they really can't dial in their numbers. right? And they can't
Mhm.
literally put a revenue stream to, source to a marketing effort. So, and so would you say, like, I mean, obviously that's something you started doing. You continue to do that today. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I talk to a lot of Restoration One owners, and I'm constantly getting phone calls about what am I doing? What am I doing that's different? And I think there's two things. I think a lot of people at the beginning quickly want to outsource answering the phone. To me, that's one of the worst mistakes you can make. I think we spend a ton of money to make that phone ring, and if you don't make sure that phone's answered right and well, and people that are empathetic and know how to, people that are trained, certified, know how to answer those questions, um, know how to de-escalate some of the misinformation in the marketplace, almost become a consultant, you're losing a lot of opportunities. So to me, that's number one. And then number two, they get they get a one bad call. They paid that $300 click or that $450 33-mile lead, and it's just a bad call, and they shut it down instead of looking at over 90 days. Yes, I paid $10,000 for this, but I made 100,000. So what does it matter that there were some bad clicks or bad calls when the overall return on investment was accurate, and they get emotional with that one bad transaction. So to me, that's the two main issues with that a lot of the owners I'm talking to kind of run into, um, that cause them issues, specifically in the internet space. And as you well know, 60% of my revenue is still coming off the internet.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like music to my ears to hear you say that, because it's the the one thing that I see the big mistake business owners make is they outsource the number one most important job in their business, and that's sales, answering the phone, right? They want the phone to ring, but then they don't want to be the one responsible for making the sale, right? I can't. Nobody can handle the sales in your business like you can internally. 10 years of being in the marketing business and 20 years of owning my own company, never have I seen a business be successful as they could be by outsourcing their phones. I 100% agree with you there. That is the one thing that businesses need to become perfect at, is answering their phones. And then I love, like you said, don't be emotional over getting one bad lead or getting a couple bad leads, right? Use that as an opportunity to get better at sales, right? So
Correct. I mean, you're going to get spam calls, and yes, you're going to pay for that click. It is what it is. But over 90 days is the ROI there. If it is, keep pouring gas on that fire.
right, awesome. Any other challenges that you faced during the business? I know for one, you and I've had a number of conversations about this, about, you're growing your business, opportunity, in your particular case, an opportunity came up to chase some hurricanes. What was, say, and I know when I owned my restoration company, we had the same opportunity. We, on the other hand, never took that opportunity. We were in Idaho, which is as far away from a hurricane as you could ever imagine. But what did you learn from that particular situation?
I think it's a combination of I had an opportunity. I did so well in my first year that I had a lot of opportunities to get into some partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
So within year two, I expanded to actually 5 locations, and 3 of those locations were multiple states away. Um, and as we got into those partnerships, then 2 hurricanes hit. The other partners really wanted to go into hurricanes. We were not prepared. Peer pressure. We allowed ourselves to get swayed into going to those hurricanes. At the same time, we're trying to open these new locations. We completely, overstretched ourselves, our capabilities, ill prepared. We went in, and not only would, now we're trying to open up 5 locations. I still have my 2 locations that I would consider not mature, still much in the fledgling space. 5 locations and 2 hurricanes all at the same time. It was almost disastrous for the entire company, right? And I would not recommend, if you're going to storm chase, it needs to be a mature organization, making sure you're taking care of home base, you're taking care of your plumbers, your referral sources, that's covered. You spend a lot of time to build that relationship, and then you can carve someone off. That's great. But you've got the financial backing to be able to spend that second team off. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it was almost disastrous to us.
Well, what's interesting though is, number one, it's not all rainbows and roses, right? Business ownership is hard. It's if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it, right?
Correct.
But and you're gonna have those quote unquote we won't call them failures, we'll call them setbacks, right?
Learning experiences, for
And
sure.
we learn, we adapt, and we pivot, right? And we carry on, we make those adjustments, clean up the mess, and we make it better. And I loved how you triumphed over the failures or the setbacks that you had. I mean, then that's typical of business. I mean, we're going to have ups, we're going to have downs. Like, one of my favorite memes is, I don't know if it's a meme, it's a diagram I've seen, where, it's a big picture of an iceberg, right? And the part of the iceberg that's sitting above the water is what the world sees an entrepreneur is having all of this success. But what they don't see is all the mess that's underneath the waterline, right? So Ron, as we're looking at advice, what's that?
Sorry to interrupt you, but you've also met the team that is with me, and they were with me through that disaster learning experience. And the first 2 or 3 months of COVID, we've had this conversation too. No one wanted us in their home, and during COVID. And I understand that some of the northern cities, some of the midwestern cities, some of the northwestern cities, restoration companies were able to pivot and start doing COVID cleans. That wasn't something here in North Carolina in the beginning. So that also was a very trying time for us for March, April, May timeframe. Sure. And quite frankly, you've met the majority of my team. It just made my team that much stronger. I mean, I've got an extremely loyal team that I think those 2 learning experiences just made the company that much better. So as we continue to grow, I think it's just going to open more and more opportunities for us.
Now, okay, Ron, you just opened up another avenue. And a question I've got to know the answer for then. Because I have met your team and they're awesome. And you mentioned a word just in your last sentence, is they're extremely loyal and have been with you for a while. So, in a world, especially a post-COVID world, where it's one of the hardest things business owners are struggling with is finding and keeping great help and building good teams, loyal teams, like you said. How did you do that? What's your strategy on finding and building that loyalty in your teams?
First of all, I never stop hiring. I'm constantly, poster out there. I'm constantly interviewing. I'm constantly looking. Secondly, as I'm interviewing, it's about explaining the strategy. I mean, my general manager's been in the industry for 20 years. He's one of the few triple masters. but it's sitting down with them and explaining our strategy. And my vision of where we're taking this is drastically different than where they were 10 years ago. I don't like the idea of we've always done this way. That's not something I quite frankly allow in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
And he, unbeknownst to me, when I offered him the job, he took a pay cut to join me, right? And I've had 2 or 3 people that have told me later. I had my most recent hire told me 2 or 3 weeks after he joined that he took a $30,000 pay cut to join. Once I explained the vision, they get where we're trying to go. And when you hear those types of things, one, you feel bad that they took that big of a drastic pay cut, but on the other hand, kind of that's a powerful statement in and of itself, that
Sure.
they get your vision. They want to be part of that. They want to be part of helping build that.
That's super interesting, because it does talks about how much more important being part of something, being part of a vision that is moving forward is so much more important than just a paycheck, right? And you know, obviously, ultimately, as long as they're part of that growth and they're part of building something great, they'll our people will work
Yeah.
uh, for a company who they feel like they have a part of a dream or part of a vision. So I love that.
We follow a transparency model, right? I mean, literally, we sit down on a monthly basis and they get to see the entire P&L. My entire management team sees the entire P&L. They know
Really,
everything being spent, and they're all part of the profit share,
that's
right?
awesome.
This is not about me and my wife, getting rich. I want them all to improve.
To work
And
together.
we spend heavily, heavily, heavily on education, right? So all of our leads are marching toward the master cert route. We spend heavily on technology, right? And as you well know, we're trying to completely change what a water tech does. We don't want just the old rip and strip kind of guys. We want people that are leveraging the science. I mean, just in the last 6 to 8 weeks, my team's small. We're less than 12 people, but I think I'm spending almost $10,000 just in education in the last 12 weeks.
That's that's awesome. I know we were just together a short time ago, and I specifically remember the conversation when you told me, it's like, I don't want to hire technicians that are just demolition guys, right? Uh, We are training an organization that our technicians are literally scientists. Like, they're people who go into any type of situation and figure out how to dry something without necessarily tearing it apart, right? And it's not just a menial labor job where they're swinging a hammer every day. It's they're they're stretched every single day to try to find ways to make things better. So, and
They're
being part of that is awesome.
they're actually compensated to not do any demo whatsoever. Their variable comp goes up to not do any demolition.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's a whole nother conversation I'd love to have with you someday. And I'm sure that that business owners would love to know how you that model and how you put that together. But in interest of time and for this particular interview, I have one final question for you, kind of as we wrap things up, Ron. What what would you say if you could wrap up? And I know that being a business owner, there's a ton of advice, tons of things that an entrepreneur needs to be focusing on. But if you could wrap it up into one or two main ideas, one or two main um, goals, what is the one, if I was a brand new entrepreneur, if I was struggling to reach that first $1 million mark, and you and I had 5 minutes in an elevator, which, you know, what was what was the one piece of advice you'd give to me, um, in regards to growing and building my business?
Well, first of all, call Derek. Um, Second of all, know your numbers, right? Quickly work yourself out of working in the business and start managing your business, and start trusting your team, but also verify, right? Build your KPIs, teach your guys what that means. Get your guys using that type of vernacular and actually presenting it back to you, so they understand how those things impact the business. So they understand how that review, why you want that review. They understand how that 5 star gets you paid faster. They understand, educate your employees, quite frankly, to replace yourself, right? I mean,
Right.
my guys will tell you that their goal is for me not to be in the office every day, but to be on my boat. It hasn't happened, but I like that. That's their goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, awesome advice, and insights today. Ron, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the friendship,
Absolutely.
that we've had, the candid conversations that the two of us have, taken part in. I consider you a leader, an icon in this industry. I just look forward to the continued growth and the success of your company, and I really appreciate that your willingness to share your knowledge, your advice and input to those who are trying to grow a business and to stretch and achieve their dreams and goals in this industry. So thank you again, Ron, for your time.
Thank
Again,
you.
I look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.